Few weeks have passed since the announcement of Persona 4 Revival. The feelings around the community have been somewhat mixed, although most fans welcomed the new game, since, well, it's a new Persona game. However, a number of fans have raised concerns following the mixed reception of Persona 3 Reload, a fact hidden by its Steam page ratings, critical acclaim, and mountain of positive reviews online. As you will see later in this video, I am also very critical of Persona 3's remake. Now, before any accusations of gatekeeping and purism come my way, let me just say that these concerns come from a genuine place of love for the series and especially Persona 4. Persona 3 Reload, although not as popular as Persona 5, still received a widespread adoration from the community, from both fans of the series and new players. It's a well-known fact that it sold 1 million copies in just a week. So you may wonder, why is this segment called the Dark Shadow of Persona 3 if it was so beloved? Well, because the game doesn't live up to the standards of the original Persona 3 in many aspects. It's a reasonably well-made game, sure, however not a worthy remaster of the legendary Persona 3 game. And mind you, Persona 3 isn't even my favorite Persona game. I only played the original after I played Reload, and I found it more enjoyable than Reload. And don't think for a second that I'm the only one who shares this sentiment. For everything Persona 3 Reload did right, which is of course improved graphical fidelity and modernized gameplay, it did at least 2 or 3 things wrong. So many things were either ignored or downplayed that at times it felt like a simple cash grab. A further delayed Persona 6 announcement, a botched DLC, and now a new remaster on the horizon doesn't help this feeling at all. Now, where did exactly P3R go wrong? Because this isn't a Persona 3 Reload review, I'll keep it short. For beginners, it completely ignored the tonal setting of original Persona 3, which is infamously dark, while Persona 3 Reloads is just bright and colorful. I'm sure you can figure out which game influenced that decision. It also completely ignored the tone and style of the original soundtrack, which for a Persona game is unforgivable. I'm not saying that the new soundtrack isn't good, just that it isn't Persona 3. It doesn't capture its spirit. Worst of all is the fact that Atlus did it once before. Persona 3 Portable had its own original soundtrack, and that soundtrack didn't go against the original of the Persona 3. If anything, it complemented it. And that is exactly what the new soundtrack should have been. And like I said, I have nothing against the new soundtrack, but it's too sanitized, it's too plain, it's too safe for Persona 3. It's also important to mention that the intro song, although not all bad, is probably the weakest one in the series up to date. The combat itself draws heavily from P5 while adding special, overpowered theurgy attacks that only make it easier. Even on the highest difficulty, it's barely any harder than P5's combat, which was infamously easy. So, after reviewing some of the weaker parts of Reload, let's see what that might mean for the upcoming remake. My concerns about the remake can be boiled down to a single point. Don't make the same mistakes as you did in the remake of Persona 3. Persona 4, like any other Persona game, has a very specific art style and style of music, which both manage to capture the countryside theme of the game, as well as the 2000s vibe. This is the core of Persona 4. I'm not saying that they should stay exactly the same, I'm just saying that there needs to be a connection to the original. My concern is that Atlus won't be able to let go of the art style of Reload and they will just swap the blue for yellow. The basis for all my concerns is the fact that Atlus doesn't want to let go of the success of P5. And sure, it is a great game, but that doesn't mean that every future Persona needs to be a copy of it. If you can live with playing Persona 5 reskinned and recolored to appear like a remastered version of Persona 3 or, in this case, Persona 4, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that it does those games justice. Every Persona is a unique experience. Every game has its own well-defined identity. Atlus used to understand that. For example, Persona 4 was built on the same engine as Persona 3, but you could never say that those games are remotely similar. These days, however, the line between one game and another becomes more and more blurry. Gameplay is probably the thing I'm most worried about. The worst part of P5's gameplay, which made its way into Reload, is the aversion of combat. You can pretty much skip any combat encounter which you find even remotely difficult. Although Reload and P5 do it in different ways, the outcome is the same. In P5 you could hide behind corners and ambush or skip any encounter you wanted. And Reload has massive open floors and you could pretty much bypass any enemy that makes you trouble. Not only that, but in both games your party moves very quickly and can outrun any opponent it faces. This is in stark contrast to the originals of P3 and P4, which both had corridors which were like choke points where you could never bypass your enemies. You had to be really careful and patient if you wanted to skip a fight, but even then, it wasn't guaranteed. The shadows were also far more perceptive and would spot you from a mile away. They were also faster, which means they could catch up to you if you make a wrong turn or get distracted. These details, although seemingly small, make a huge difference in the games, in both the game's difficulty and engagement. This simple but genius design philosophy is the reason why the older Persona games are more engaging. Now, let's focus on some potentially good improvements which Revival could make to enhance the experience of the original. The first one that comes to mind is the handcrafted dungeons, the staple of P5's gameplay. It's pretty obvious why it was impossible to do for Reload, but it can be done for Revival. The original Persona 4 stands in a weird place when it comes to dungeon design. It's almost a halfway point between Tartarus and palaces, with some of the floors being handcrafted and others randomized. I'm sure anybody who played Golden will remember the dark floor in Rise's dungeon, the teleporting maze in Mitsu's dungeon, and Naota's dungeon had you going back and forth between floors to collect keycards. Although I doubt Atlus will actually go that far with making this remake, if they do decide to make this change, it would change the dungeon crawling part of the game for the better. The next big change they could put in the game are new social links. Although that too seems unlikely given their past track record, it would be the next logical step if aiming to improve the experience of the original. For those who don't know, Persona 4 has something of an alternative social link system, where you can choose between two characters for a given arcana. This was achieved by choosing between different school clubs you wanted to be a part of, giving you the option to have either Akane if you join the music club, or Yumi if you choose the drama club as your sun social link, and either Ko if you joined the basketball team, or Daisuke if you chose the soccer team as a strength social link. Atlus could potentially do this for some other social links, for example if they change how jobs work so that you have to choose between different jobs. This would open up the possibility of Tower, Devil and Temperance arcanas also having multiple characters. Both of these additions would significantly change the original experience, improving it for the better. So, do I think Persona 4 Revival will be a good remake? It's really hard to say, although I'm not very optimistic. Too many recent gaming disappointments have left me rather pessimistic regarding any future releases. But that being said, even if the game does disappoint, even if it ends up being nothing more than a simple cash grab, I'll rest easy knowing that I can simply play the original.